Mazdack Rassi is the co-founder of Milk New York and Milk LA. What started off as just a photo studio in 1996 has now grown into one of the biggest influencers in the fashion world. I've known Rossi since 2004 when I was a starting off photographer, and he was one of my biggest supporters. You know, whenever we needed, we had no budget to shoot an editorial, he would give me a studio, he would give me lights. He was always pushing to help the young creatives. He also gave me my first exhibition down in Milk Gallery downstairs in 2008. In addition to launching some of the most influential people in the fashion industry's careers, he's also just a lovely, charming, wonderful guy. And he is always intensely creative and always looking for the next thing. Anyway, so I hope you take away some of his enthusiasm and lots of the great advice he's going to give.
The ones
like
in
a baby.
Baby, you look like a saint.
Yeah, I mean, not that you look really old man. How to make your subjects feel good. So, a little backstory about you. I know that you started in real estate. Can you just give us an idea of how this came to be, how you ended up being Rossi today?
So, yes, the truth is that when I first came to New York, I went and got my real estate license, and I started to show apartments. So I was the guy that, you know, you would call in the newspaper, and then I would go and meet you in the corner and then go show you the apartment. And it was great because I really learned how to be a New Yorker, because you live in the streets, you walk, you know every building, you know every super. You're giving them little envelopes with cash to give you the apartment first. So it was like my first real hustle job in New York. And I walked everywhere. I mean, I used to go through shoes, like it was just crazy. And that allowed me to meet a lot of people. So I'm doing real estate, working here and there. And, you know, just working at night. I was a bartender. During the day, I would do real estate. I mean, we were broke, you know, but it was great. It was really the best time of my life in New York. And I remember we used to just eat like mustard sandwiches for like 4 or 5 days till we got a paycheck, you know, and then like there's like 5, 6 of my friends, and we were all like broke and working so hard, and like someone would get a paycheck and then you would buy everybody falafels, you know. Right. It was great. And one day my broker said to me, you know, there's this really, really successful businessman, his name is Moshe Mana. He wants a penthouse apartment. And I was like, oh, I know a great penthouse apartment. And I said, okay, I'll go show him to him, and he loved it. And that became my partner. And Moshe said, you know, I bought this building in the meatpacking. And he said,
what year was this?
This is 96.
So what was going on around this neighborhood?
It was crazy. It was just all hookers, drug dealers. All the buildings were empty here. Moshe said, you know, I bought this building, you know, it's in the worst neighborhood in New York. So of course I was like, let me go check it out, you know. And Moshe and my partners, Erez and Moshe, they bought it to turn it into like mini storage buildings. And so I came up with this idea, you know, to kind of tell them that I have an idea to do a photo studio.
Why? What knowledge did you have in that?
I had a friend named Carl who was a photographer. Another friend she used to be a model. So I would go to other studios and pick her up after work, and we'd go grab a drink or something. And I was always like, what an amazing business. It's kind of like a hotel, but instead of renting, you know, 300 rooms, you're renting like 5 rooms. And, you know, instead of like calling the restaurant ordering a sandwich, you're like calling the equipment room. So for me, it was based on hotel management. I put this idea together, and I brought it to Erez and Moshe, and I said, hey, you know that empty building you got? I would love to, you know, have the opportunity to do a studio there. And then they were like, you want to do a studio? I was like, well, I don't have $1, so we would do a studio. And somehow they just, you know, went for it. 20 years later, last year we celebrated our 20 years. We have about 10 divisions in 2 cities. But our most drastic expansion was into consumer goods. So we launched Milk Makeup, which was, you know, kind of a crazy idea. We knew nothing about it. But that's what the culture of Milk is. It's just trying, and, you know, we launched our own fashion week, Made. We launched, you know, obviously the Milk Gallery, which You had your show in. So we're constantly always trying to figure out what to do next. Like we just can't sit back and wait. There is this, yearning here from everyone who works here of what we call like the 80-20, which we kind of took from Google. So the idea is that everyone spends 80% of their time doing what their job is, but they spend 20% just thinking about completely other things that have nothing to do with their jobs. That's how all these great ideas get incubated at Milk. So, for instance, the guy who used to work at the cafe, who was our barista, created our digital platform, Milk XYZ, back in the day, because he just said to me while I was making my cappuccino, hey, Milk doesn't have a blog, can I start a blog? And that became our platform. And so one day we woke up at Milk and we said, we didn't even realize, we built a maker studio. People just come here and make stuff. Yeah. The best day in Milk's history as a maker space was, I was giving a tour to someone. I came down from my office, I came in and walked literally down the hallway, and I think it was like Elsa, one of the big Victoria's Secret models, literally runs out, gives me a hug, but the guy's just standing there she could have pretty much had her wings on. And then we go downstairs to the second floor, and I open a door, and Kanye's in there creating the Air Yeezy, not the Air Yeezy, the Adidas Boost. Right. And so Kanye's working in there. He was there for 6 months building his line, and kind of just using Milk as a creator space, as a maker space. And then I kept walking on the tour, went down to the jam room, opened up the music room. Patti Smith was in there rehearsing. And I just thought to myself, this is the best day in Milk's history, but this is what Milk's about. Yeah. It's just people all over the place making things.
Just creating, yeah.
Just creating. And that energy and vibe is unparalleled. So that gets me excited. That's why I'm so passionate about everything I do. And, someone asked me, I did a talk at a school, and one of the kids said, what is success? And I thought to myself, I said, I've never gone to work in 20 years. I love what I do. It's not work. Every day you come here and there's people making things. Here we are now. We're making videos. You're creating a show. So that's when Milk just does well.
You've had a hand in helping young designers, young photographers. I'm sure lots of other young creatives that I don't know about. What was the incentive there?
2008, the economy had just crashed. And at Milk, we always had one really big show. It used to be Calvin Klein. But I always used to take 4 or 5 studios and just give it to these young designers. And when 2008 happened, I realized we have to really triple that idea. We got to help all these young designers. So that's how Made was created. We went to MAC Cosmetics, and I said to John Dempsey, I said, will you support me in this idea? We're going to open Milk up. It's going to be free of charge. And we're going to pick about 30 designers, and they're going to be able to show for free at Milk. So he came in, and we started the project together, and it became Made, and we've helped, so many designers today have come out of that program.
Such as?
It's like Alexander Wang, Parenza Schooler, Joseph Altazara, Billy Reed, Pamela Love, Band of Outsiders, Public School, Hood by Air. I mean, they're all our kids. Right. And it's amazing. They command fashion today. When they were here, they were the new generation. Nobody knew about them. Very few people did.
Going back to what you were saying about, there are so many more aspects. It's not just photography, it's about film and it's about VR and all this sort of stuff. So do you think it's possible to just be a photographer nowadays?
You can, if you want to be in the fine art world. I think that to be a successful photographer today in this industry, you have to understand video, motion, you have to understand mixed media. Right. So a lot of the students that are coming up in Parsons and FIT and all these great schools, they're learning mixed media. So they're coming up a little bit as a director, photographer. The new generation's kind of, it's always that way where they can multitask. And that's one of the reasons a lot of the younger photographers they're doing well is clients are realizing that they could shoot multiple medias all at once.
People ask me, should I be an assistant or should I go to college to do photography? And it's always a tricky one to answer.
Yeah, I think that you both are important. I think you want to go to school so you can learn structure, and then you should get out into the real world as fast as possible. You'll never learn how to deal with a client in school,
Yeah.
how to make a client want to use you again in school. You know, those are social and sort of issues that you will only learn in the real world.
Yeah. Let's talk about New York. How does New York, what about New York and the energy of New York? How did that affect where you are?
It's everything. It's Milk's number one sort of inspiration is New York City. I mean, it's, for me personally, it's, you know, I look at New York City as the ultimate battery for everything we do. You know, I just walk around the neighborhood and you sort of walk in footsteps of giants. I mean, you're walking in the same footsteps as Warhol and Basquiat and, you know, and Tesla and all these guys. So it's everything. And
New York is such a kinetic energy, and you feed off it. I mean, I know that I want to do more projects, and I want to start thinking outside the box or doing different things, because I feel that I go out in the street and even if you don't talk to people, you'd feel it in the air.
Yeah.
And people are on the hustle, they're trying to do things, they're trying to move ahead, and it can be intense and it can chew you up, but if you can ride it, then it's the most incredible ride ever. I mean, I think.
Yeah, and I think that we have a responsibility by living in New York to be great at what we do and never settling. Like, there is a responsibility you have if you call yourself a New Yorker.
Are there any pitfalls that you've seen that young photographers, you know, super talented young photographers have made that you've seen?
It's really important to not put all your eggs in one basket.
Interesting.
You know,
What's that?
because what happens is that some end up coming into the business trying to be photographers, but there's so many other positions in this industry. So the best way to think about it is that, you know, it is 1 in a million to make it to the levels, you know, of calling yourself a fashion photographer to your level. It's very difficult, and I think that you have to be honest with the new generation of those chances. So, but it's such a rich environment. There's so many other great opportunities and jobs. Some people come, they end up being an editor. Others end up being an art director. Other people get into the set business. Other people switch to film. It's like, I think you have to approach it that you're going into a huge industry rather than I want to go be a fashion photographer and be the next Stephen Meisel. The other thing that's really important is mentorship. You have to, in a way, Mario was your mentor, right? It's like, and that's something that comes out of being an assistant, is that you have to also make sure that the person you're working with or people in the industry, that you can have a few mentors that can, you know, educate you, give you the ropes, and eventually help you. You know, no one is going up without someone reaching a hand down to pull you up.
Right.
It just doesn't.
I'm a young photographer, just come into New York. How do I get to be a studio assistant?
So I think many people don't realize, but the best way is just go and apply at studios.
And how do you do that?
You just walk in.
Okay.
You just walk in. Did I ever tell you the story of these 2 Japanese kids? So one day there's these 2 Japanese kids in the lobby, and we thought they were like clients or something. They're just sitting there. They got backpacks on. They're super cool kids. So finally, at some point, someone went up to them and said, "Can we help you?" And they were like, "We just came from Tokyo, and we heard if you want to be a photographer, you got to go to Milk." So we were like, "What?" So one of them ended up living in our jam room for a while till he found a place. The other one, we started working. You know, we interned them, we gave them a little bit of money. I think one of them ended up working with Terry Richardson, and the other one, I don't know where he ended up, but they're both in the industry. And that happens a lot. We get kids who show up here, and you know, from all over the country and the world, that just want to work in the equipment room. So you just got to try. You got to go knock on doors, and just like you did.
Thanks for watching, and if you want to see more face-to-face interviews, then you can click here or subscribe somewhere around here.